Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate means the people in Lakota, brought to you by Skoll Construction.
Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guest tonight is Mr. Donovin Sprague, author, historian, and educator. Thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you very much, Richie. It's a pleasure to be here on your program.
Awesome. And I understand that you're a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, and you grew up there as well. Could you talk to us a little bit about your growing up years?
Yes, I was born and raised at Dupree on the Cheyenne River Reservation, and I'm of the Minikoju Lakota. Went from K to 12th grade there on the reservation, and then from there I actually left and went to higher education after that. But it was a wonderful place to live and grow up and still be there, you know, if I could. But you know, just the stories that are there and the history, and later I would find that all the other areas of the state are very interesting like that too, as I became interested in history.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that you wrote 10 books. I know that you have one that's on the publisher's desk, but I mean, you wrote 10 thus far. Can you talk to us a little bit about that books? And I guess how you're growing up in your rearing years there on the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe played a role in your interest in developing those books. So.
Yeah, thank you. I guess growing up, I noticed that there was a lot of potential, I guess you'd say, for books by Native people, because I never did see one, and actually I got mostly a lot of Daniel Boone stuff growing up.
Yeah.
But you know, I knew there was a lot of wealth of history and information out there from elders and, you know, grandparents and stuff like that, and I just felt that there's a need for the world to see that. And so really, as an author, I found out later you almost have to step out of a traditional like world to say, okay, here, yeah, I'm an author and my name comes out on this book, and you know, it's just like stepping out into another world, because there are so many traditionalists that are hesitant, you know, to make that step. And so I think the overall is a value to that, you know, and so you have to make that decision, because I had all that history inside of me first, and then after a person's gone, then where does it go? If it's not handed down, then it just, you know, you don't hear about it. That's it. And I just felt that there's always a need for more of that. So it kind of sounds like you're just really out there, you know, and it's nothing like that at all. It's preservation of history, of Lakota people, you know, and say, just like with the language and preservation efforts, history is the same way. You know, you have to preserve that, or you lose a lot of that. And so anyway, I chose to kind of step out there, and I've got 10 books. The last book is at the publisher right now, and it's a big Lakota Cheyenne history book that starts in the late 1600s and ends about 1920, with the use of like winter counts as primary historical documents, and valuable interviews with elders, many who are not here anymore, because this book is over 20 years in the making.
Wow.
And so there's people back then that were 100 years old that were interviewed, you know.
And I understand that your 10 books are a part of a larger series then. Could you talk to us about that? I know they're a part of there's other authors involved in this series as well, and other books involved. So could you talk to us about that series then and what it's
Sure.
called?
Yeah. Well, probably the one series you're thinking of is Arcadia Publishing, and that one has a lot of historical photographs. So the majority of my books are under that publisher, but not all of them. This other, the big one is kind of like, it's not published, has been the one that I've always worked on through the years before I was ever an author. And so then they heard that I had a lot of historic photographs and stuff. And this company was centered kind of around, you know, photographs and that. And so then they asked me if I would consider, you know, doing a book on those, and so I did. And so I also have a couple Oklahoma titles too from down there because I've worked with Oklahoma tribes. Sure. And then I've also helped with the Smithsonian on a book, contributing author for that. And so there are some other areas I'd like to move into, even maybe some children's stories and that as well. And again, it's just because the need is out there, you know, I just don't see those. And so the things I don't see out there, that's what I like to do.
Yeah. So in gathering this information for this historical text and being a part of that historical record, then what would be your resources then? Where do you have to go do your research in, and who have you gone to visit to do such research?
Okay. Yeah, with the research, it starts out with my own collection, which is very big, and so then it takes me to different reservations depending on where the book is about, and we'll just use an example like Standing Rock or something, and then I run ads in tribal newspapers and get the word out, and I'm usually on radio and telling them what I'm up to and doing, and I meet with in this case, you know, even the tribe and that, and so you kind of, you know, everybody knows what's going on, and then the momentum starts and people start calling, you know, people start calling me, and then I'll talk to anybody who will talk to me. Sure. And I go out into the districts and I learn so much then about, say, that reservation by going out to the elders, and, you know, they're at a community center, you know, on this day, and they're all eating, and they invite me in, and then sometimes, like I remember at Wakpala, in that situation, they all brought photographs. I was surprised everybody wow. laid them out on the tables. Yeah. And so I use those, and then I credit every person in the book under that photograph, you know, like for their photograph. And some people have even given me photographs. They say, well, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, after they're gone, and what they're going to do with them. And so you're digitizing these and preserving them, and you just take them. And so even the Smithsonian, you know, has contacted me about photographs that they're not, you know, aware of. And when you get up in an attic or something, that's when you uncover a lot of interesting stuff. The good stuff, yeah. Yeah, and some of those have even, I can't disclose just where or who, but some of those, just as an example, have uncovered, say, like a ghost dance shirt or a whole outfit, regalia, you know, leggings and all that stuff. Sure. In addition to historic photographs. And so that's a primary source, and I say the people themselves. When you interview a person that's, you know, 80, 90, 100 years old, that is what we call a primary source in history. And so that's what you're looking for, is the most primary sources that you can get. And the legends and storytelling is awesome, it's great, but me working in the academic world and that, you always have to have a backup of where did this actually come from, because we didn't have those books in the early days, you know, and we had drawings. And I found out right away they ignored the winter counts, and they could have avoided a lot of mistakes, these non-Indian authors, if they would have just looked at our winter counts of the most important historical event of the year. And but they said, well, that's just art, or that's a drawing, you know, we can't use that. Or, you know, legend story, that's a legend or made up story, you know, and it's not our legends, you know, maybe there's maybe supernatural things happen, but the elements of the truth are all there. You have to piece that together. And you can learn a lot from the drawings of winter counts as well, because, say, different winter count keepers, which is the most important event of the year recorded, could be, a lot of them start around late 1600s or early 1700s, the earliest one I've seen, and then they end about 1900. So a wealth of, you know, history there, 300 years. But now people are, like this new book I've got is all built, you know, my primary sources in a footnote may be the winter count of so-and-so for the year, you know, and all that. That's my footnote and resource. And see, that's going to be a thing of the future. People are going to say, wow, you know, these are valid, where the academic world used to, you know, dismiss all that.
As art.
Yeah.
And I hope that we get to that point where they are using these and validating these as historical documents of our history. So
Right.
I appreciate the work
Thank
you're
you.
doing, sir. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about Donovin Sprague's work here in the area. We'll be back after word from our sponsors.
Native American children make up 20% of our school system in Rapid City. Rural America Initiatives, we have a capital campaign going on to build a first-class structure for these children. They've survived for 25 years in modular structures. It's time to bring them together to see this become a dream for these children come true.
Please consider donating to Rural American Initiatives and all they have to offer, from Head Start to high school, in empowering American Indian youth in succeeding in their goals.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
Our school has great students and dedicated teachers, but we need our community volunteers to help us to provide a broader view of the many ways a good education can point to a bright future.
Did someone say volunteer? Our team at Black Hills is here to help. In fact, we sponsor events and projects, and our employees volunteer for organizations throughout the Black Hills, including partnering with schools to help students learn more about life outside the classroom. Extracurricular, extra fun.
We are not so different, you and I. We may be from different places, but the sun that greets me in the morning, the sun that warms the hills, is the same sun that greets you. We are all connected. We are all family. Mitakuye Oyase.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Donovin Sprague, author, historian, and educator. Thank you once again for being here, sir.
Oh, thank you, Richie.
And I understand that you just came back from Little Bighorn. And could you talk to me a little bit about your experience over there? I know you've been heavily involved with a lot of the work that's going on over there. I understand that you interviewed with the Travel Channel yesterday. So if you could talk to me a little bit about that, sir.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, I was interviewed by the Travel Channel. I guess it's supposed to be on September this fall, but it was about some of the expeditions, at least on the soldier side. They had a non-Indian person doing that, and then they wanted to know some of the Lakota and Cheyenne movement and what happened directly after the battle and that. So I was up there for a couple days doing all of that, and been on the History Channel before as well, and History Detectives, and so it was a pretty good interview, I think.
And then, so for your role with that particular interview with the Travel Channel yesterday, then, when you talk about the movement of the Cheyenne and the Lakota people following the Battle of Little Bighorn, could you tell me just a little bit about that? Because I'm very interested in history. I'm sure a lot of our guests are as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of our viewers.
Well, they wanted to talk to me because I'm a descendant of a family that fought there right at the battle and on the what they call Last Stand Hill and Calhoun Hill and all that. And so they wanted to know about that, and they knew about an unpublished book that I have as well that has all of that in that. So really, when we opened it up, we said that this is from an unpublished book. And so I talked about family members like my great-great-grandfather, Hump, and where his camp was afterwards. He went directly south into the Bighorns there. The Tongue River across there from about Sheridan to Miles City is where the camps all were at that time. And they went south, and then later they started moving towards Mato Tipala or Devil's Tower area and Powder River area. and Crazy Horse over in that area as well. Of course, Sitting Bull went north to Canada. So anyway, the main movement was first south and then an easterly direction and then kind of to the north. And most of these people, a lot of them were surrendering, were soon to surrender. And by April of May the next year, there was nothing going on in there at all. Like they asked me, well, what would a traveler, would he be, in fear of his life if he came through? I mean, the wars were over after that. We had 5 surrenders from our family and many others also, but they all separated them, and they sent Crazy Horse to Red Cloud Agency, and they sent Touch the Cloud to Spotted Tail Agency, and they sent Morning Star, known as Dull Knife, to Indian Territory, Oklahoma, where he would run away, and they sent Hump to Miles City at the Tongue River cantonment, and then Lame Deer was killed over there while they were trying to negotiate a surrender, and conflict broke out, and so he was killed. But with those 5, the wars were over by April of May of the next year. Everybody was in, except Sitting Bull was in Canada. And then my great-great-grandfather, Hump, and many others, then they had a second surrender because they quit that life at Miles City, and they went on north to Canada, to Saskatchewan. And so people like Hump and Gall and Rain in the Face, all of them went to Canada and settled up there. And then they had a later surrender, and then into the agencies for surrender.
So having direct access to this kind of oral history then, as one of the war chiefs there at the Battle of Little Bighorn, that being a descendant of somebody like that, and then yet having those stories being told throughout the generations, I'm sure that helped as your role as an educator. Then I understand you're a part-time, sometimes full-time instructor, and is that at Black Hills State University then?
Yes.
How long have you been there?
Well, I've been over there probably off and on for probably just over 20 years. I started a long time ago, and I've actually worked full-time up there for 3 years, drove back and forth from Rapid City. And I teach in American Indian Studies, mainly history, but a lot of people call me the historian, but I really didn't go to school to be a historian as far as degrees. And so I actually get called in once in a while to teach world politics and American government,
Yeah.
I have, master's degree in political science and studied in public administration and that too. But every university I've ever been at, whether it's Iowa or, I always become the historian or history teacher.
And so what benefit does your students have, especially non-native students, say, who comes in and learns kind of like the other side of the story, or, that native perspective? How do they benefit, and how does that benefit the world that they go out into, say, the workplace, or to, go on with their career and stuff? So how does that benefit?
Well, according to, I'll use the letters that I just am getting from some of my students from this spring, and they said they greatly benefited from this, and they didn't know the culture and the history, and it was actually going to impact their life, some of them, now that they looked at the world differently and more positive and with an understanding of the policies and that happened. And that was actually an American Indian history class, a study of all tribes, not just Lakota. And then I had an art class as well. So yeah, it helps to have family that were at this site, and they contributed to the history there, versus somebody that's never been there, and they learned it out of a book, and now they're passing it on to the students. So something that falls in there that is really my main income, you might say, or job right now, is I'm a tour guide. So when classes are out, I conduct tours into these areas. So people go on with a tour with me and say they go into the Little Bighorn, or they go to Fort Phil Kearny, or where the Fetterman fight was, Battle of 100 in the Hand, or the Wagon Box fight. All of those, my family was right there and fought, you know, and we can look right in the Little Bighorn Museum, and here's a picture of my great-great-grandfather and other relatives right on the wall there, you know. And so I think that's much more valuable from what I hear from the people who have been on my tours and the students, that, hey, you know, it was like, you know, stepping into your real history there, because, you know, it wasn't just a history teacher that was called on to teach that class.
I always felt that was the benefit of oral history, is it really takes you into that place and that time, as opposed to American history book, which kind of gives you that outside perspective looking in, but somebody whose family member has been there really draws you into the site and the emotions of the experiences there. So I understand you were in the music business for a little bit, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in our next segment. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Our future is our children. Their hope is you. Hi, Jeff Bridges here. Help our children grow strong for the next 7 generations. 20% of Rapid City school children are Native American. Many come from difficult situations, experiencing hopelessness and despair. Rural America Initiatives brings hope and opportunity, one dream at a time, one child at a time, one family at a time. Please, make a tax-deductible contribution. Be a part of the dream.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
I want some more.
What's he doing?
But he can't.
Look at him. It's just not done.
Please, sir, I want some more.
More? More?
More? Please, sir.
He has asked for more!
Thank you.
What?
Well, he did say please. Sir?
Yes, he did. And thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.
He's a wonderful boy. A delightful boy.
Please, and thank you. Pass it on.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Donovin Sprague, author, historian, and educator in the area. So thank you once again, sir, for being here.
Thank you, Richie.
You have your guitar out. I understand you came from a musical family. Could you talk a little bit about the role that music played in your household growing up?
Yeah, music was probably the most important thing growing up for me. Music and knowing your history and that equipped me with a lot of strength inside, inner strength, that you can just almost like, it seems like you walk above the problems and the things that try to pull you down and all that, and you know, you're just moving along. You've got this music and you've got this history in your heart that nobody can take away. But I started playing guitar, you know, I can't even remember when I was a little kid, you know, and my dad played in a band with his brother, and they played a guitar and a fiddle, and then my 2 sisters that I was raised with, they had a band. They played. They sounded exactly like the Everly Brothers.
Wow!
And they were great harmony people. And they both played guitar. And my job as a little guy was to go get their guitar, which hung up in our house, and balance that off the hook, just barely balancing the bottom of it. It was probably bigger than me, and then bring that to them. And then we also had a big church piano in our living room. And so we actually had dancing going on. So they would put, in our basement too, later when they were in high school, everybody came to our house, and they liked my family, and they would put that sparkle stuff on the basement floor and, you know, do the jitterbug and all this stuff. And we had records, and we had music, and we had live music going on. And people still talk about those days, you know, and everybody wanted to go there. And, you know, there wasn't, you know, like any alcohol or anything like that going on. And it was just really great, clean fun. And a lot of cigarette smoking, I remember, because that was a thing
I understand that you opened up the Rockin' Records here in Rapid City in 1985, and I'm sure that was a great experience, meeting a lot of the musicians that came through town and just kind of connecting people with people through music then. How was that?
Right. I was always a record collector, and I actually have I've had a record collection guitar since I could practically walk, and I found this photograph of me. I'm barely walking. I'm sitting in our living room floor with some little coverall pants on, and I'm just covered with 45 records all around me. So
nice.
My wife said, "Well, you haven't come very far since then."
Yeah.
But in 1985, yeah, I was in Rapid City. I moved to the Black Hills in 1979 and opened Rockin' Records. I had 3 store locations there, sold vinyl and CDs and sports cards, and operated that for 10 years. And then I moved to Iowa, and I took the store with me to work at the universities. And then when I came back in 95, I went on a eBay store. So it continues since 95 as a Rockin' Records and eBay store.
That's
and I
awesome.
have 3 store locations at Chamberlain, Rapid City, and Spearfish.
Sure. I understand that you and your son, Brandon Sprague, who happens to play up in Deadwood, have been nominated for the South Dakota Music Hall of Fame 2 years ago. So could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, we were nominated. People were contacting us to make us aware of that, and they said that we should be in there for, you know, our work as musicians and promoters. And I booked concerts and brought people to town, introduced a lot of, you know, blues stuff, you know, to the area, and in-store appearances and all that. So yeah, we've been nominated jointly.
Sir, we only have 1 minute left. Go ahead and play us out. I want to thank our guest tonight, Donovin Sprague. I want to thank him for the work that he's done for our community in educating our native and non-native community members. I want to thank Prairie Edge for hosting our show tonight. I want to thank our producers, our sponsors, and I want to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night.
You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Skull Construction.